Welcome to the Astro Forecast, October 5th all the way to the 7th, 2023. On the 6th at 9:47 a.m. Eastern Time, we have a last quarter moon in the zodiac sign of Cancer when looking at the Western astrology. When we have quarter moons in the cycle of the moon events, this means that we're having this energy tension that's called a square, this red line between the sun and the moon, and that creates a little heat, friction. So that means it's very common that we get triggered if there's anything that at this time needs to be brought up to the surface from subconscious, the moon, to the conscious, the sun, self. The way that I like to look at specific moon cycles or even natal charts is by going through the zodiac wheel. And that means the themes that we're having this experience in the house system. So let's start with the first lesson because we're going from 1 to 12 and we're starting here with the master teacher of transformation and power. Still in retrograde in the third house, a house especially in esoteric astrology that speaks of your communication with your higher self. So we are being triggered here to deepen that connection in order to trigger some of the realization of our own personal mental prison. So there's a lot of support right now and a fast-paced energy in terms of our relationship between our intentions with Venus and our potential for manifestation, transformation, and power. So you may have a lot of thinking going on because there's a lot of mental aspect with the zodiac sign of Capricorn in terms of your desires, especially with Leo, the last degrees here for Venus, the master teacher of desire and intention. You're going to want to be in coherence between your heart and your mind. Yin and yang. Some of you know this is a current playlist that I recommend you go and check it out. I've released a recent upgrade with recalibration to the 432 Hertz because there's a lot of main broadcasts that are on different scales, so we can cancel out the parasitic zapping. Next, we have in the fourth house Saturn retrograde in the first degrees of Pisces. They're speaking of transformation, metamorphosis. This is in direct opposition to Venus in our intention. That means that some of us are realizing, a lot of us, that there might be sometimes some discrepancy between the things that we set to manifest and intend to manifest and the way we vibrate to. And that means some of the mental prison, and we set intentions and that's not gonna jive with the action reaction. You can't be thinking this and thinking that and attract it if it's in opposition. So a lot of realization are coming forward, especially if you sit with yourself. This is the fourth house. This is all about the home in terms of esoteric astrology. I love using the system especially for becoming our highest version of self, and that means our authentic self. And usually a lot of unbecoming is actually what we're doing, shedding the old masks, veils. Next, we have Neptune retrograde in the last degrees of Pisces. Again, about those endings, those patterns that we're ending. Again, patterns maybe of desires, of intentions. Maybe some of you, you're just outgrown certain things that you thought you wanted. Now, this is the house of self-expression. How are you able to embody and express your higher self, your authentic self? Some of us are still purging some of those Chiron wounds in the placement of Aries that are speaking about power, initiating our power. Are we able to move forward towards the things that are calling us. And here, especially with that fifth house energy, is going to be your creative self. The collective north node just shifted degrees now from 20 to 25 degrees of Aries, that is speaking much more of balance. And I mean yin yang balance. I mean making sure the flow of give and take is well balanced, and it's in the sixth house. This is going to be really affecting how you feel in terms of yourself, even to the point of your health. And this is supported by the work of Jupiter retrograde here in the degrees that are speaking of unconditional love. So bringing more love, bringing more gratitude, love for the feminine within, the feminine without, the masculine within, the masculine without. Bringing this sacred union, this inner bond, is really starting to crank up a little bit collectively. The master teacher of spiritual abundance in retrograde, aka Jupiter, in those degrees that speaks of unconditional love, is in quincunx with the sun, so the conscious self. And that means a lot of our love wounds or lack of self-love, lack of boundaries, is going to be revealed to us at this time, especially through the mirror of others, because of the position of Jupiter being on the descending line, and the master teacher of the conscious self here, the sun, being in the 11th house, that is going to connect us with a greater amount of people. This quincunx energy is added to the double yachts that we reviewed already in the last astro forecast, with Pluto retrograde and Neptune retrograde going to Venus, as well as Mars and Venus going to Neptune retrograde. If you want to review those energies, just watch the last forecast on the YouTube channel. There is a playlist. We have in the 7th house the master teacher of growth and evolution in retrograde, Uranus, that is in the degrees of Taurus, that speaks of optimism, enthusiasm, joy, feeling victorious, successful. And it's in the house in esoteric astrology, the 7th house, that speaks of our relationship between the lower self and the higher self, the ego versus the higher self. And that means here you may have some encountering some battles between the ego self and the higher self in terms of resolution, especially with those squaring energy, where we see here that the master teacher of growth is conflicting with some of the intention with Venus and some of the transformation with Saturn. When I was looking at those energies before I was able to even talk about it, I was praying and asking, how do we get out of this amount of energy, especially when we have to transcend so much of the things that is still unknown to us? And the answer came through heliocentric astrology when I looked at those placements, especially Jupiter, in the degrees that we're speaking of gratitude. So from the perspective of the sun, gratitude was going to help us. Some of you know that I started in the subscription temple. This is where I meditate with some of you guys. We started a gratitude practice, so 7 days where I'll be channeling different mantra, different practices to rebalance the yin yang, that receiving and giving energy within and without. Some of you, if you want to check it out and try it out, I have put a preview so you can access the first day of this gratitude meditation chain that we started all together. When we move to the 8th house, the house of shadows, where we have the shadow work, interesting placement here for the master teacher of subconscious. We have the degrees of Cancer that is speaking of learning, how teachable we are. So this whole energy that is highly tense, highly triggering, okay, I mean, look at this battlefield. Okay, there's a lot of energies, but this is showing that there is a subconscious desire for us to learn more, especially about the things about the self that we did not want yet to see, or was not time for it to be revealed. And this is a perfect time right now with this configuration to be brought up to the surface for a higher understanding of how to manifest. Yes, here Venus, master teacher of desire and intention in the 10th house. That means a house that has a higher purpose. This is the relationship between the lower self and the higher purpose. And it's in the degrees of Leo that speaks of amplification and multiplication. And that means that everything that we're doing to the smallest degree, just like observing a flower and feeling its beauty, has so much energy behind it. Just having the understanding that if we're not able to appreciate the smaller things, when we have greater things, more money, more abundance, whatever it is that we are calling in, how can we fully feel satisfied? And some of you, it's also the realization that you're already living your prayer. Think about it. Maybe you're experiencing right now something that you used to pray for a couple of years ago, a couple of months ago. Even if it was just like when you were sick, having a cold, and wishing and praying for health, and now you're healthy. So this is a lot of higher knowledge, understanding, and teachability that is very amplified at this time. So again, gratitude is going to be a great practice for everyone. When we're moving to the 11th house, we have the master teacher of knowledge, Mercury in the first degrees of Libra, that is speaking of spiritual autonomy, breaking the karmic chain. And that means here we're literally shifting our vibration through everything that we have heard so far in terms of mastery, in terms of that moon event, in terms of this friction, because this friction, when there's a square between the sun and the moon, is supposed to light us up, to inspire us. When the flame burns, that means there's something to dissolve, there's something to get rid of. And here we are learning this, and we're seeing it through the mirror for each other, from each other. There's a lot of higher consciousness that's coming through, especially with the placement of the sun, the conscious self that we're seeing manifested in each other. Now, if you're still wondering what the heck is going on, I understand the principle, but I don't understand why this, why that, what is not coming my way. This is why we have Mars here in the 12th house, the house of the unknown, the hidden, the subconscious. But in the last degrees of Libra, they're speaking of divine order, divine organization. There is a cosmic alignment that is right now coming into play, and that is unfathomable. We can't, I don't have words to explain that to you. I don't even have that consciousness, but I can understand those feelings. And a lot of us are going to start feeling that everything is shifting and shaping itself into more of our intentions and desire, but in a way that is yet to be revealed. I'm trusting that this astro forecast supported you in many blessed ways. I'm sending you much light, much abundance your way. Thank you so much for being part of my journey. Namaste.